Thinkster, an app for polls, discussions, and a breeding ground for the alt-right?
It's the Bueno Report.
This past week, a new app was launched to compete with the 3 billionaires who control our attention span. It's called Thinkster. The app was created by this Piers Morgan doppelganger, a closeted libertarian, gross, and a guy who's been taking the no haircut part of quarantine a little rougher than most. Thinkster was created to start discussion through questions, polls, and rankings. It was meant to compete with the social media platforms that have become the echo chambers we all hang out in. The creators wanted to provide a platform where discussion could be had, and over 1,000 users tested the app while it was in beta for 8 months. When it officially launched last week, however, it was met with some backlash. Some pockets of Twitter said the app was spreading dangerous rhetoric and was being downright hateful and disgusting. Just look at some of the questions on this app. These are violent, disgusting, and reek of toxic masculinity. Anybody who asks these kinds of questions on an app needs serious psychiatric help, and it's a shame that they were even asked in the first place. In all seriousness though, some people were livid with the questions that were asked on the app. Some of the questions include something like this, or this, or this. These questions were deemed as controversial and taken as offensive by the app's critics. And you know what? I agree. These questions have complete, uniform opinions about the morality of the questions, what should be done, and it is, in fact, bigoted to ask questions publicly around such topics. It's not like these questions are based on publicly debated topics or important political issues that are worth discussing. I saw a common theme online. The concept of the app was great. It was just executed poorly. So naturally, we should dogpile them and participate in a public shaming. There were also claims that Thinkster is going to collect your data and sell it to advertisers. Ironic that someone would complain about that on Twitter. Because maybe, just maybe, your assumption's off and that's not what they're doing. I got a quote from the creator of the app, Joe Swarrick, who said they created an API that third parties can tap into. For example, a local restaurant could create a Thinkster poll, embed it on their website, and have people interact with it in order to get discounts, be entered to win prizes, or provide valuable customer feedback. They hired lawyers who wrote a privacy policy so the data is not linked to you, and the only data that companies can access are in order to ensure a better customer experience. So they're also trying to boost local businesses as well. And of course there were areas where the creators messed up. Initially, you weren't allowed to delete your account without deleting the app, which was fixed within the first 24 hours. And although the data situation appeared murky, they clearly state the data is not linked to you. And it's not like anybody even fucking reads that anyway. I can't help but feel like the hate was cherry-picked. The overwhelming majority of the questions on the app were not political. And I don't think it's fair to take a small percentage of the questions and use it to paint the entire intentions of the project. When one of the creators, who's probably a giraffe in a past life, asked me to use the app while it was still in beta, I was able to see who was asking what questions, how many questions were being asked, and the volume of how many total questions were asked per day. The creators literally asked questions every single day on that app for 8 months. They even began to take topics from news outlets in order to create relevant questions on the app. And maybe some of the questions aren't as simple as yes or no. However, there is a report option on the question, and there always was for questions that violate community guidelines. Maybe they could have asked questions better. But do you know what I think is more important than that? The fact that they created a platform where discourse can thrive, and a certain amount of people didn't receive it well. That can happen when you put yourself out there. I believe in full freedom of speech. No restrictions, nothing. I will even defend your right to go online and slander the hell out of Thinkster. My question is, who does that benefit? What positive change does that make? What do you gain by going online and condemning people you don't know? And if you do know them and slander them anyway without talking to them, that's even more embarrassing. Haha, yeah, that's my boy. I sold him down the river. Haha. Things like personal attacks and creating fake accounts to ask hateful things leads me to believe this is a smear campaign born out of boredom. Maybe the accessibility of somebody local makes the judgment feel more justified. If you're going to oppose social media apps that have hate speech or incite violence, I wonder if you should be worried about any other platforms. We don't post about Jack Dorsey or Mark Zuckerberg because they're so far away. They seem untouchable. Just like how there's nobody posting about the coup going on in Myanmar right now. I wonder if there's going to be a black square for that. When you fight for freedom of speech, you're fighting for everybody to have the right to express themselves honestly. When you fight against that, you're advocating for people to repress themselves. Should you gain any bit of notoriety, the mob will come for you too. Martin Niemöller once said, "First they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out, because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out, because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out, because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was nobody left to speak for me." We all think we're safe until we're not. Let's look at one of the questions, why don't we? Is drunk consent still consent? Well, it depends. If you and your 3 closest friends pressure her while she's drunk into fucking you, then no. If she says, "Let's have drunk sex later," and then still consents later while she's drunk, then yes. I have literally had a woman cut me out of her life because I did not act on her drunk advances. If you can't consent while drunk, what happens with drunk hookups? Who raped who? No matter how you slice it, the question isn't as simple as yes or no. If you want to publicly disagree about how the question was asked, awesome. However, to say it shows the creator's poor character and implies that they're perpetuating rape culture is asinine. If only the app had an option where you could comment your opinion on each question. Oh wait, it does. It's almost like they created an app with the idea of furthering discussion. Well, the app is good, but they're privileged white men. So now we're telling people what they can and can't do based on skin color. Nice. Perhaps the most shameful thing was there were people who knew the creators, were friends with them, and still threw them under the bus. Here's my question to everyone ripping it online. If you want to make a difference, is piling on helping? I've had conversations with people who slandered Thinkster, and I always ask them this. If it was your friend and they were receiving lots of backlash, what would you do? And the answer is always, well, I'd be there for them and help them rectify the situation. Do you remember all the people historically who were shouted down and loved the people shitting on them? Oh wait, that doesn't happen. They get bitter and latch onto their ideals further. We live in a results-based society, for better or for worse. The results of Thinkster could look questionable depending on what you were exposed to. Before I go, I'll leave you with this. Daryl Davis is a black musician who goes to KKK rallies and turns members away from the KKK. However, he said he never goes to those rallies with the intention of making them leave the KKK. He thinks we spend a lot of time talking to people, talking at people, not with people. If he never influences any Klan members to leave, is he still as loved? Or is he the biggest coon or Uncle Tom on the planet? People love to hate the process, and Thinkster's intentions were to create discussion and conversation, not endorse genocide. Over 90% of the questions on the app were not political. First they ignore you, then they ridicule you, then they attack you and want to burn you, then they build monuments to you. Thinkster's getting a lot of hate online. Maybe they're doing something right. Thanks, guys.
It's the Bueno Report.